Somehow I forgot to do an intro for this one, but here we go. So, the HYPERSKY podcast is where I just discuss politics, gaming, and just other social issues around the world, including my own life, and I'd also do some updates at the moment on Black Mirror. I'm going through that slowly. What else am I talking about? Talk about my personal life a bit as well, here and there. It depends on what I keep in the podcast, so with that said, hopefully you enjoy. So, voting is important. So I'll make this as the first topic for this episode anyway. So it's a weird topic because of just the climate in America at the moment, and even around the world to an extent. And there are people, for some reason, leaders, or supposedly the politicians, saying that they don't want the voting system. What do you fucking mean by that? Are you serious? That is absolutely insane, because the voting system exists for a reason. And even though I don't entirely agree with politics as a concept, it's still something I have to abide by, because in the end, it's sort of a way to safely decide who gets to run what, and that's the only way you can ensure there is safety. Look at what Donald Trump said. He said he doesn't want any more elections, or so, no more voting systems, and he wanted to remove it, he wanted to scrap it, and he's still attempting to do so. But this was a promise he made to the American people, as well as fixing the economy. What did he do though? Well, luckily he hasn't changed the voting system as far as I know anyway, but he's fucked up the economy. So now we're in a situation where nobody actually trusts him. And in fact, Republicans, as far as I know, do not favour Trump. Now, the most diehard people will, for some stupid reason. But literally, he's fucked up the country as a whole. He's caused it to go into shutdown. He's caused it to have an economic crisis again. And he's definitely causing problems around the world as well, including declaring war. Like, it's absolutely absurd, and also pairing with Putin, like becoming fuck buddies or so. Oh, this shit is absolutely absurd. But voting is so important, even just elsewhere, because you need a way to get someone out. So say, obviously Trump's already done bad things, but say someone in the UK does something bad, which you already see. Keir Starmer is corrupt. And unfortunately again, another corrupt politician, it seems, Nigel Farage, aka Hitler 2.0. But we're seeing that again, and the voting system is important for addressing that, because it means that your votes go towards, just notice there's a word on this fucking image, on the must-see extension, this is, say Matting You Island? It does, I think. Holy shit, it does. Okay, it's like a shadow cast on the beach, and it's like upside down, but it says, Matting You. It's, in the Philippines. That's amazing. Sorry for the tangent, but that's just taking my interest. Holy crap. ADHD moment, by the way. Yeah, like, we need the votes to get people out and get someone else in. This way we avoid disasters like this, and can try and reverse problems that we've had. The UK hasn't had a good track record, and it's ironic that they call Americans idiots. But either way, it exists for a reason, and that's it really. I can't really say much else on this, it's quite obvious. So I just found out something incredibly disturbing. It's not really a laughing matter, really, because it's disturbing as fuck. There's apparently a gang in the UK now who's not only made themselves public, but they're also encouraging quote-unquote vigilantism in the name of God. So you could probably guess what group it is by now. It is Christians. They call themselves God's Army, and they're actually called something else in reality, but I'm not going to promote them. But holy fuck, this is dangerous as hell. It's possibly so dangerous that there's actually, like, you actually need safety laws now to police them. I'm not talking about online safety, that's a different thing. But there's like so much wrong, like we probably need community service now where people are educated in self-defense training and also just morality, because let's be honest, I think if people are doing jobs where there's power involved, they need to undergo a mandatory morality test to see if they qualify. Because quite frankly, the amount of people who go into power, who misuse it, is extremely fucking high. And I don't feel safe. Because that's what's happening. I don't think any old person in it doesn't matter about background checks, that's irrelevant at this point. Because people who do the wrong things will constantly do the wrong things anyway. But this group seems to be promoting hatred against Islam, and they claim to want to clean up the streets and take care of Muslims, but not in the way you think. Obviously, it's a more malicious type. And they plan on gathering terror cells. Actually, I do have a video here, I think, on TikTok. Someone talking about this. Where is it? I hate the interface here. It's awful. How do I just view my favourited stuff or whatever? For fuck's sake. It's on my profile, that's it. Yeah, it's a video by Annie Says Too. It's explaining like all this. Yeah, like, it's extremely boring. It's not something that should be happening, but for some reason it is. And it's all because people have blown something completely out of proportion. But there's another stupidity to this. Now, I'm an atheist, so I'm not partial to religion at all, in any way, shape or form. But you're going to find the majority of people who are Muslims. I could probably look this up actually. Okay, nationality. It's probably going to be mostly UK people. And let's see, England's population in sort of 2001. There's only like doubled since to 2021. I wonder if there's this in nationalities. Nominations, nope. Okay, I would have thought someone would have done something like that, but I can almost guarantee it's going to be British. British majority identify 55% Muslims in England and Wales are British born, according to the Muslim Council of Britain. So, literally from their own mouths. With a significant portion, 75%, identifying as British. So, it shows you, like, again, this is like the description of it actually, like, there's probably more to this. But you're going to find that Islamic people are going to be British, like, every single fucking religion I think that's ever existed probably has a majority of people prescribing to that religion in their own fucking country. And I wonder how many immigrant people and people of colour are Christian. Well, it's a genuine question, like how many? There's probably going to be a few, but probably a lot more than any other. So, this makes no sense from the get-go, just even as a concept, like ignoring the fact they're building terror cells to terrorise people for seemingly being Muslim. Again, I don't know why. They haven't actually stated a problem. I think the only thing they'd say at this point is probably we're overrun by Muslims. Tell it to the British people then. Because they're the fucking Muslims. Like, what are you doing blaming immigrants? And you know, yeah, people brought it to the country. But so did Christianity. Like, Christianity was brought here. So what the fuck are you on about? It's absolutely absurd. So I don't exactly know the best way to address it even. Again, it's a really creepy situation. Also, here's the thing, they're gonna stop picking up just any woman and child, like regardless of religion or nationality. And they're gonna do fucking horrible things to them. Why? Because that's what these groups do. And because they feel empowered to do it together, they're also gonna fucking do it. That's absolutely the crazy thing about this. And they've also encouraged using Telegram as well, which is, I think, an encrypted network thing? Encrypted social thing? I can't remember what it was. But again, it's like really fucking creepy. And the way to identify them is a white cross on a mask, on a black mask and black clothes. Which, yeah, that's not all suspicious. I'm also being sarcastic. It's essentially the Ku Klux Klan, but they're wearing black this time because they couldn't go back. Oh, how fucking ridiculous. Like, it's just so unbelievable that this was allowed to happen. It's public as well. I don't know if it still exists, but Jesus Christ. I think if police haven't done anything about this already, then there's going to be a big problem. And you know, on the streets as well, we're just going to be unsafe. Because the moment we start seeing these gangs of people starting to drag people off the street, and us civilians, we can't necessarily do anything. You know, it's going to be too late before the police even get there. So, someone's already been kidnapped and taken off the face of the fucking earth, and we don't know what's happened to them. So, yeah, like, it's turning into a fucking dystopia. Just crazy, and like, who are the next people going to be? Like, once they're done with Muslims, who else? It's definitely going to be women and children, but it's probably going to be, like, their collateral. But it's probably going to be disabled people, like people who just don't agree with them or something. It's probably going to be even, like, left-leaning people, let's be honest. But nobody's safe. And this is what I mean with, like, a community sort of police system. You need people to be able to have the authority to incite not only just legality. I don't give a shit about legality, so even if I did enroll in something like that, it'd be more about morality instead. You need something like that at this point, because again, it's getting too dangerous. You know, someone who's part of this community sort of thing, it's almost like a communication channel, and you track it and stuff. Like, that will help. Yeah, like, people can spot, like assuming they have vehicles at this point, like they probably are, getting their gangs. You know, you're going to be able to report the vehicles, take a picture of the number plate and stuff, and report that to the police, but also, I think you have to tail it at this point and see where they go. It's the only way you can ensure safety and also get police involved. But it's so, like, I don't know how to describe the situation. It's just so fucking bad. Like, I couldn't believe it when I saw this. It's like, what Annie says, don't scroll past, this is breaking news, this is dangerous. And it literally is. Because once they're done with Muslims, they're just going to come after anyone else. And they're not going to stop there. So, yeah, these Nazi scum, they literally are. They're going to fucking ruin the country. Going to throw more problems here. More wrenches into the works. So, I guess I'll leave with some advice. I'm not immediately knowledgeable on this sort of thing. But what would I recommend people do if they are possibly the target of this sort of stuff? I think it's really important to definitely make sure you're not in these situations where you're surrounded by these gangs. So I think for people practicing religion, unfortunately, you need to stop going to wherever you're going, whether it's a mosque or whatever. But stop practicing that. I think unfortunately for Muslim people, like, you have to take off the fucking burqa. Like, I hate to say it, but you're just going to be easily identified as a target. And in a life or death scenario, it's either doing that or getting kidnapped. Those are your only choices here. But the other thing is self-defense. Pepper spray. Like, I don't know if that's legal in the UK, but if you have it, definitely could take away some fucking gangs. And as long as you spray it in their direction, that'll help, and don't care about any civilians who are caught up in that. Like, that's the least of your worries. Because yeah, using self-defense, it's fine. But the other way is like learning actual physical self-defense, like being able to get yourself out of like a hold or something. Able to like just escape people, like even like athletic stuff, like being able to have the stamina to essentially run away and run faster. It's very important. Because these gangs know that I'm going to be fucking unhealthy, drunk people, middle-aged men. There's no fucking doubt about that. Being able to outrun them would embarrass them, but also give you time to get help. And then also, it's like the other thing. This actually kind of just realised, but if you're close to shops and stuff, close to any sort of surveillance, you have to essentially make yourself known, like shout on screen, but also go into these places, and that will scare them off, because especially if it's like somewhere they know, they're probably going to get in big fucking trouble from that footage alone. They might not be easily identifiable, but again, like, these people are idiots, so they don't realise that they can be identified. And there's many ways to track them. Like, surveillance is there for a reason. CCTV is so that people are literally followed, so that you can see what they're doing. So that's also important in public spaces as well. It's also very important. So I guess we're yet to see any victims from this. That's the other thing I'll say, because it's not certain that this is actually what's happening, but it very well could be. So it's important. Trying to see if there's any examples of it actually. But also looking at the victims, unfortunately, like if there are any videos, it'll give you some idea of how they work, and that's also really important, because you can see weaknesses in that, and also they're going to be saying the same shit. They're going to be sharing their own techniques, and you're going to be finding out from them what they're doing and if it's effective. So you can exploit those weaknesses, and as I said, like, you can learn ways to get away from them. But if not, there might be individual TikToks about this as well, or just social media, ways that people can protect you. And then the final thing, I guess, is especially if you're a Muslim or any other religion or minority, you need to do it alongside other people, because I think they'll be scared to touch anyone that isn't around someone. Like, if there's people around, they might be too scared, because they are fucking cowards in the end of the day. Picking on people. Like, the bullying mindset is typically, they see a weakness in someone, they want to exploit that. And that's what they're doing. That's why women and children are at great risk of this shit. And yeah, so sticking around with other people, and especially kids, like, this is the other thing. I think we need people to keep a close eye on any areas that are obviously filled with school children, but also people around these areas, neighbouring it, sort of Now, honestly, if you're around my area, walking alone, you need to keep an eye on them, because there may be one point where there's a blind spot that they think, these clump gangs think there is a blind spot, and you need to look out for the children. You know, have cameras ready for if there's a car, if there's a person, and obviously you have to trail them. Like, you have to fucking find these cunts so this shit doesn't happen. This is how creepy and dire the situation could become. It's not actually happening, to be clear, but again, just keeping a watchful eye and actually protecting women and children is important here. That's why I suggest it. Trying to think, is there anything else? I don't think there is at this point. Yeah, just everyone has to be safe at this point. Safety first. I don't think you shouldn't risk it, and especially if you've seen people like this in your area. And also, like, the other thing is, like, be careful going to your house, because someone might be stalking you, and I think a lot of women, unfortunately, have experience with this, but it could be men too as well now. But you need to keep an eye on your back. I always check behind me before, like, going into my house or even going towards any place I'm going to. I do that, other than letting people pass because I'm quite a slow walker. I also do that to just check, because you never know, and if I hear like footsteps behind me or running, I'm constantly looking, because it could always be someone that you don't want. Like, it's probably going to be someone that you really don't want in your life. And it's important to know that. So always be careful with that. The only other thing I could suggest is like disguises as well. Not necessarily masks, but you could wear like COVID masks. There's nothing wrong with that. People might be weirded out by it, but that could also prevent any sort of suspicion of your face. Like, people won't be able to track it necessarily. It's like half covered. For some reason, the idiots don't actually know what a COVID mask is, by the way. I've seen it at the United Kingdom protests. So what else could there be to do? Again, like, trusting your neighbours as well. That's the other thing. Let your neighbours know if something like that has happened, if you think you're being stalked or something, and just talk to them. Because it's important that you do get the protection, and also you have people looking out for you. I think in that situation as well, you probably need to look at moving. It's easier said than done. Contacting police and council and stuff, you no doubt have to go through anyway to move, but not the police, but in a situation where you are being stalked, you need to. So, yeah, I can only hope for everyone's safety in this. Myself included, unfortunately, because I'm going to be somewhere down the line being disabled. So, someone who's probably more vulnerable. Yeah, the situation sucks. And as a British person, I'm sorry that's happening. It's fucking terrifying. I just went through weeks of stress about the current climate of anti-immigration and racism and reform and stuff. Like, literal dangling threats over the UK. And people are seemingly now making gangs. Yeah, what was that about uniting the kingdom? Why the fuck? It's just so weird. So creepy. So yeah, wish for everyone's safety. Let's move on to a more positive topic now. Definitely needed at this point. I can't remember if I've talked about this, but I'll talk about it anyway. I want to talk about what I found out about politics, which is weird. And, like, it's so bizarre. Because my biggest point of worry and contention was just the complexity of going into politics and learning everything there is about it. But when I looked into it, it turns out to be a lot of fucking bullshit. Like, every single thing is just things I've known, which is nuts. Yeah, I sort of knew about the far left versus far right, and that's about it. I just understood what people stood for in that, but not the niche things in between, which are actually very few because they're all the same thing. So I ended up discovering that actually the situation at the moment is that people are again following politics as if it's like the one and only thing. But there's like so many little niche things that contribute towards it that not everyone has considered. And as a result, you've got people in the UK, obviously, voting reform. I have to bring this up again because it's important. Voting reform based on a single issue. And it's like such a trivial issue as well. They're doing it based on the fact that there are immigrants and they don't want them in the country anymore. But they're willing to compromise in a way that they vote for a tyrannical Prime Minister and follow the media of a tyrannical person in order to get the fucking immigrants out. Like, it's absolute insanity, and they ignore everything else that person does. Despite the fact this guy, Nigel Farage to be specific, is a Trump bootlicker, is a complete fucking moron, and made a fool of himself in US Congress in front of Senator Chief. Oh, sorry, I forgot his name, but it's definitely a senator. But Nigel Farage just made an absolute fool of himself. And it's just really disappointing to see, like, the fact that people are willing to ignore these obvious issues, including things like taking away benefits and workers' rights, and forcing disabled people onto the street. You know, it's just like, what the fuck is going on? I don't really get it, and it's always about the same thing, but there are also people now suddenly turning towards this side and actively, like, causing harm, like they're actually killing people. And it's just absolute insanity again and again. Now what's happening, I guess, again, is a lot of these people who are just idly minding their own business like a few years ago, not even coming out saying, I'm happy to abuse women, something they've actually said, or they're happy to abuse children. Again, people saying that and defending other abusers as well. But suddenly they're out of their cage and they're doing this shit. So, I don't fucking get it. But these people are a danger, and when I look at politics, it's often, again, it's like a case of various different beliefs, and that's it. There isn't anything else to it. And there are niche things that obviously people in the system have to deal with, like laws and establishing like new connections and stuff. There's many different things that go into it. And that's why we have the Parliament here in the UK. I didn't realise it was that simple. So simple that I think I could run for politics. Like, it's that dumb. And I don't really agree with it. The whole political system exists because people can't be trusted. And because people can't be trusted, there's going to be more people you can't trust, even within your own sphere. So it's like a fucking battle of trying to not get betrayed. And that's literally all it seems to be at this point. It's just absolute ridiculousness. So, I'm just unsure at this point about what we can do anyway. But in terms of learning politics, as someone who's not political, Really the only thing to understand is that there are just different things that go into it. You know, various human rights, various economic things, various like laws and stuff. There's plenty of different things that go into it. But again, the problem we face is like the opposition, and when people don't understand that, they think they're in the right here, and even though they don't understand a thing, they're still going to push it, and that's the most frustrating thing. And I've never really understood that position either, because it just makes no sense. Again, a lot like with the what is it? Oh Jesus, I can't remember. I got distracted there. But holy crap! Like people who are just completely bigoted or just going to be bigoted. Like that's something that happens until they can change their minds and prove that they can. I don't think it will necessarily change anything for them. But I think now we're seeing that there is an act of terrorism, as I previously said with like the gangs and stuff. These people are absolutely fucking terrorising people, like terrorising women and children, which they claim to be against. How fucking ironic is that when literally they're doing that, they're dragging grooming victims off stage, they're abusing children and women behind the scenes, and you've even got idiots in these cars who go to these like Palestine protests. And I just saw one recently, and he's been doxxed already, not surprising. But he's shouting at these people like, you're a bunch of Beckies. Which is just like, what the fuck? It's like, you're kidding me, like, half these people, over half of them probably, are British. They're not from Pakistan. And even if they are, like, it's not even fucking accurate, like, what's the Muslim population in Pakistan then? Let me look in Pakistan. Let's see. 97%. So yeah, okay, fair enough. But it's like, why the fuck does it even matter? Like, these are British people protesting, so like what? They're not even from Pakistan, it just makes no sense. I guarantee that people don't even know an accent. That's the other thing that sort of gets me with this. A lot of these people, again, who oppose things and instead promote oppression, do not understand the first fucking thing about nationality. And even the importance of, for example, immigrants in society and multiculturalism. So, they have no place to speak on it. It's not that I'm saying free speech shouldn't exist. It definitely needs to criticise people, to understand everything else. But if the way these things happen, and the way they're inspired by complete hatred and violence, there's not really free speech, that's just hatred and violence. It's not actually doing something constructive. Where I would argue there is a point to being constructive about this. But yeah, I'll definitely criticise Pakistani people for being 97% Muslim. And how they run the country is probably also not very nice, because knowing what I know about Islam and the types of what is it? It's not doctrines, I'm trying to think of the term. There's lots of different types, there's like Shia and something else. But they prescribe to different things, and people assume that all of them are terroristic, but that's not, again, how it works. It's the same as like evangelical Christians, as missionary Christians, whatever. I forgot the terms, other types of Christians. I'll look it up. This is easy to do as well. What types of Christianity? There's plenty here, according to Google, but let's do Wikipedia. Okay, that's not helpful. Okay, where's the thing then? No, I just want a fucking list. Why is it so hard? Denominations, that's what it's called, not doctrines. But you've got Catholic Christians, Old Catholic, Independent Catholic, Vacantism, Eastern Orthodox, Oriental Orthodox, Basic Orthodox, Church of East, what the hell? Protestant, Anabaptist. There's so many different ones here. There's tons. And this is the thing, like, people do not understand this thing at all. And that's really the problem here. Again, it always ties down to not understanding, and if the world had an understanding, we would all agree on something. At least on most things anyway. There's definitely things we can't. For the most part, there are things we can. And that's the difference here. That's why so much of the shit that I see again with anti-immigration reform voters, it's just so hard to believe. And the fact we're seeing now that a very likelihood of grooming gangs being a public thing and actively kidnapping Muslims and stuff, like, we're in more danger than fucking ever, and all that is because of a misunderstanding. And it's no doubt science blown out of proportion. So I don't know what else to say here. Like, politics itself is easy enough to get into, easy enough to understand. Where I stand, to make it clear, is with the Green Party. They're the only one that shares ideas that care about protecting people and addressing the immigration problem in the correct way. It's just important to note, because some will address it, but not in the right way. In the way that would reduce the amount of jobs being taken and the amount of basically crime that's committed. But no other policy is actually addressing that. Literally, I've not seen a single one address it the way that the Green Party has. So that does say a lot. But even then, like, there's so much I don't know about the Green Party. It just goes without saying, like, do your research. As someone who's very much trying to ingrain myself in topics and to understand them, again, I've just been led to the Green Party as opposed to everything else. So it's literally a crazy situation, and again, research is so simple to do as well now. Holy crap, you can't let people like reform in. It's fucking absurd. It's actually going to destroy the country, it's going to kill people, for sure. And it's probably going to even turn quite dystopian as well. Like, we're already seeing what happens in Black Mirror happening now. And who knows, like, maybe there's a world where even like the darkest fantasy sort of stories come true. You know, which hunts people's heads on pikes and hanging from trees. There's so many things that can go wrong with this sort of government. So just be aware of that in politics. And if someone's promoting violence, it's never a good thing. Like, in plenty of cases, it is just a bad thing. You need to do it to keep peace at times, but currently we're not at war with anyone from a different culture, so there's no reason for it. So everything that Reform is saying, and all the bootlickers, or I might as well say cocksuckers, they're believing, it's pretty much false. So yeah, and also until it's proven, it's like, there's no point. So I'll just leave it at that. Move on to the next topic. So I just finished watching season 3, episode 1 of Black Mirror, and I have a lot to say about that one as well. It's surprisingly, like, it's simple in concept, so it's just executed quite well overall. I'll say there's one improvement I would make on that specific idea, and that's basically adding a character who's low rating but speaks sense. I don't think Susan was the best one for that, in my opinion, but she definitely could have played a part in it still. It's like an example, like someone just like meh character basically. Holy crap! What an episode! Especially that ending. Like, what the fuck? They've really caught me off guard. So it's just the most bizarre ending I've ever seen. I think it's like they found love but hate as well. They found hate. It's so weird. But anyway, the episode, for anyone wondering, spoilers obviously, just skip ahead if you don't want it. Basically revolves around a pretty sci-fi world anyway to begin with, but they have rating systems on their phones, and it basically is how they rate each other as people, and the entire world revolves around this. But there are certain ways, certain jobs and certain privileges that high-rated people get, and that means that certain people can't actually get into those positions. So there is actually some problems with trying to get into certain places. So I think one of the things was like at the airport, there need to be like a certain amount to qualify for like the express lane. I think it's like 4.0 and above, but if you're below that you don't get that. And people rate you just on the fly out of 5 stars, and that has its own issues obviously. But it's just so fascinating because as a concept it is terrifying still, but it's also just, it's something that could always happen still, as most things about Mirror can. They probably have in some areas anyway. But it's just like, whoa. That's what a society would look like, basically, or to an extent anyway, with the ratings. You know, if your mother was like a 4 star or something, that's sure. But it shows like the inherent bias towards certain people in this. So I wish it explored that more, honestly. And again, as I said, it needs like a good character who's low rated. Yeah, it's not the best thing for the world, I guess, the rating system. And as we saw, it's quite unreliable because it means like if you slip up once, you're just screwed for good. It becomes like a domino effect. There's another term for that. Snowball effect, that's it. And that's basically what happens. But holy crap, that is an episode for sure. Again, I just find it so scary because again that means people, your entire life depends on those ratings, and that means everything. That means jobs, it probably means houses as well. It's sort of implied that these luxuries are restricted. And the people at the bottom are just going to be stuck at the bottom. And I guess until they change their attitudes, probably. You know, that's why Susan was there. She changed her attitude completely. But bloody hell, like, it's just terrifying. Like, I couldn't even imagine that in today's society because it's just like, I wouldn't want to be part of that. And you know, stuff like Neuralink, no doubt, probably plays a role in this shit. I remember when that was a thing a few years ago, and it's obviously played a role in like Black Mirror. I've seen that a lot. I don't know if they predicted it, but it's just so disgusting of a concept. Like, what the hell? I don't really know what else I can add here. It's a very good episode, but again, it's very terrifying. It's actually not for the faint of heart, I guess, because the ideas from these are just so psychologically mind-bending. It's just hard to see, and like again, their entire lives revolve around these ratings. It's like talk of ratings, like it's the only thing that happens and the only thing that supposedly matters, which is still very terrifying. I keep saying terrifying because that is what it essentially is. Oh my god, I'm just in shock about it. and there's a lot we can learn from this too. But no doubt, like, there's probably dating apps out there that have ratings, and the scary thing again with that is it means that certain people are just going to be considered undateable based on the fact the interactions that people have had, probably mostly negative anyway, because it's fucking stupid to base it on bad interactions. But, you know, like, also, like, how many people upload to just appearance and stuff, like keeping up appearances, that's literally what this is. Again, that's why it's so terrifying. You know, going back to my experience with dating apps, I've never had much luck. You know, I don't really ever get to speak to people, it's quite rare, and the moments I did, it wasn't great, because of the types of people that existed here. So, it just wasn't very optimal, but I wouldn't rate people down necessarily, it's just, it needs citation really, because not everyone's like fit for purpose, but sometimes they are. You know, I met nice people on dating apps for sure, but some are not so nice, and that's sort of the problem, and it's really one of those things where you only learn about these issues by speaking to people. That's the other thing I noticed with this episode. It's always about reading people as a book, rather than actually, judging a book by its cover, I mean, rather than reading into it. So it's always sort of wrong in that sense. Like, it's never actually a safe thing to do. You know, they based everything based on appearance. They're like, 2.0, that's not a good rating. So it just gets out of hand, and in a dating app sense, no shit. Like, people just see a 1-star and be like, no, not for me, even though that person could be perfectly fine. Like, it's so dystopian. And then, like, social media having an influence in that as well. We can sort of predict it. That's pretty much happening now anyway, as just a knock-on effect of social media. We have people rating each other based off of what they post, what they do in their life. It's extremely terrifying. Well, I don't know what else to add to this, because that is what's happening. I don't know what else I could say. I keep saying that, but yeah. That's my thoughts on that episode. Scary stuff, as usual. But yeah, I'll see what the other episodes are like. I'm not getting through these quick enough, I don't think. You know, I've still got to watch Taskmaster Season 20, which I could also talk about, I guess, after this. I'll talk about them, yeah. But yeah, I'm going through it quick because I keep getting distracted in real life. There's so many things happening at the moment that I just can't focus. It's almost impossible to do anything at this point. So I don't know. It's just people keep bringing things up and getting in the way, and I just don't have much opportunity to spend watching this or doing my hobbies, because yeah, people are essentially making me busy, not necessarily on purpose, but just as a result of needing to be, because there's things to do. I've still got many other things to do. Yeah, it's fucking annoying. Yeah, so move on to the next, I guess. So I tried to make something about this and failed to make it because it just went off course, really. I just have these issues sometimes when explaining things. So I just go into other random topics that are not related and then say something that just all doesn't work. Yeah, I think I'll answer a question about this. Because of the recent Synagogue murders, actually. I think people have the wrong idea about various things happening here. Like whether the guy was a Muslim, there's no confirmation of that. The guy was Syrian, so there's there's no actual correlation. So really the only way to know is if family knows, like, but other way. I just fed up with like the misinformation stuff and people using this, saying that of course Islam is the problem. always is to people in their mind. But that's not actually the real problem. It's just people being completely radicalised by probably terrorists as well, let's be honest. It's terrorists within their own groups, or even just radicalising themselves, because that's something that does happen. You see it a lot with shooters, I suppose. People, like in America, I mean, school shooters, people who get so bothered by children and bullied by them can often end up being that fucked up in the head. It's sad, but that's what happens essentially, and if you don't stop bullying, unfortunately, that does occur more often with more mental health issues, but also mental illness. It's a higher chance. So, yeah, I could be wrong on that, so just to put that out there. But I just think all this misinformation is dumb, and also there are people now blaming like the pro-Palestine crowd for this. And apparently there's even people calling British people Pakistani. Which is just, like, I don't have the words for it. It's just fucking crazy. Like, how the hell do you even make that correlation? Like, white British person with British voice? Oh, it must be a Pakistani person. Are you fucking kidding me? I don't have any affiliation with Pakistani people, let alone Muslims, and yet still defend Palestine here, because they're the victims of a genocide. And I think if you're essentially denying that there's a genocide and denying that they should get help from either humanitarian aid or even militaries, so they can actually have a chance to live and reclaim their own basic land, then I think you're definitely on the side of child killers and rapists. Like, if you're against all that, it's absolutely fucking absurd. And sometimes I just wake up and I can't believe the world that I'm living in. It's just so dystopian and eerie. Like, I just don't understand what goes through people's heads to make them think, oh yeah, that's fine. It just makes no sense. So, and it goes without saying, like, yes, us pro-Palestinian people are completely against any violence at all. Like, every single act of violence is a bad act of violence, regardless. And I think even the police hit sort of criticism because obviously they killed someone. And I think it was only, I could be wrong, but I think it was only someone with a knife that managed to kill 2 people and injure 3 more. Horrific, but I don't think death is the answer to that, and it's just kind of the scary thing about the world we live in. It's just a complete lack of care and thought even put into sort of stuff. And we don't feel safe because that's what's happening. Like, it's weird, but yeah. So I don't really know what else to say here, to be honest. I find obviously the Synagogue attacks sickening. I think the police action is equally sickening as well, because it also just removes any sort of closure we can have. Like, if it's Muslim, okay, it doesn't really matter, because it's still something that's, again, someone radicalised, probably by other terrorists or other religions, like, who knows. But it's important to question these things and criticise them when they do come. It's just a basic part of humanity and even investigative work. So that's where we're at with that. Trying to think, was there anything else I was going to say? Other than just people being on the side of child killers and rapists, it also just says a lot about them. Just objectively so, because that's what's happening. It's not necessarily disheartening, but it's just so frustrating that, again, people are just taking comfort in the idea of coming out as these types of people. The people who are direct dangers to others, who are trying to cover up their own tracks for wrongdoings they've done specifically. And yeah, like, I don't fucking get it. It's just so backwards. And yeah, that's condemnable as well. I only hope those people see the light, but it's not always easy. So yeah, I think that's all I could say on that moment. And more stuff will probably come out, but who knows. I'll just explain a bit of myself, I suppose, for anyone confused. I'll try to be as ethical as I can, and I'll do that by basically minimising the amount of violence. I don't advocate for violence. I've run into issues in my own life, and even have my own problems to face. But because of that, because of a mental breakdown I've also had in the past, I've just come to change myself for the better and try to favour people more. And choose a very non-violent way of addressing the world in general. It's very important, because without that I think we'd just be killing each other. Be a lawless world, no roof, just constant on the run, trying to get away from shit that's happened. Yeah, so that's all I'll say on this, so move on to the next topic. So, as each day goes by, both in the UK and the US and probably other countries at this point, it's demanding more that we need to revolt, because so much is just going wrong. Like, just to list some of the situations, ICE is still happening in the US and it's still fucking evil as hell. I just finished watching a clip where this innocent family car was pulled over and they were essentially held at gunpoint by ICE, literally, the guns pointed at their fucking heads. And then when they refused to, well, the driver, who I think was unfortunately foreign, he wasn't putting down the windows and they were threatening to break his window. And then they eventually just did it. And they were trying to break the window behind him, which, by the way, has a newborn baby in the seat. So they're just fucking evil. Like, there's no actual care for anyone in this situation. And it just leaves me to wonder, like, how do you even combat this fucking vile shit? It's hard to really know a solution, but again, revolt seems to be the way. Because at this point, you can't trust them. Not trust them to even do their job, for example, like ICE. It's not even possible because currently they mask themselves, they pretend like there isn't an issue, that they don't need to show ID, which they do because they're technically part of a legal operation, so they need to show it. But that's the situation. It's like, it's so fucking dangerous and probably deadly at this point. We don't even know how many mortalities and casualties there have been as a result of this, and those who mask themselves are obviously up to no good. I think there's like definitely a call here for people to investigate these people, not even like law enforcement, but to investigate the just identities of these people, not even just internet people. That's probably better at this point. But these people are wearing masks and then abducting people are just extremely suspicious. They're very much doing something malicious here. And I reckon it's like as evil as you think, you know, rape. In the case of women, but I think for men it's like torture, essentially. But they're abducting these people just, again, to do this evil shit. And it's just so wrong. I don't even know how this has been allowed to happen. But I think once Trump's term is over, which hopefully it will be soon, we might find that, based on reports, there'll likely be a massive number of fucking, not just injuries, but mortalities. And yeah, like, that's not going to be surprising at this point. It's literally what they intended to do from the beginning. It's literally trying to get radicalised people for them to misuse their power and do this evil shit, hence why people are masked. They're not doing it to protect their identity, they're doing it to protect their crimes. That's literally what's happening. That is absolutely absurd. And again, the fact that essentially nobody's actually done anything about this is scary. Because the other thing I have to mention is, in a case where we are trying to be non-violent, there are situations where you have to be, unfortunately. And this is when they're like hitting you and stuff. It's definitely a reason to fight back. And I don't think anybody will hold that against you. I think even to an extent they agree with you for that. Just fucking weird, but still. I want this situation to stop with ICE, but in the UK too, because we've currently got a gang going around, as I said earlier. Supposedly anyway, you see actual video proof of them doing weird shit, but they exist and they've been recorded. I've seen them driving around. There's actually footage at the end of that Anna's video I saw. But man, this is just a fucked up world, and at this point the only people you can trust are civilians. And this is why I think we need to group together to start doing something about it, and this includes even having multiple channels and having messengers for the group essentially, of trusted people. So essentially it's like a group that's really unbreakable. There's no leader, but there is a messenger. There's people who call the shots, multiple people who debate on it, and actually we just go around and say what needs to be done. Don't know what it can involve exactly. It could be like protecting someone or intercepting, for example, something as malicious as that gang. It could be multiple things, and even just investigating things at this point. And let's be honest, I think the more we can expose evil, the better, and we can also be better equipped to deal with it. But it seems like the only way is actually getting people doing something, and it's not just a revolt against people, it's also the government, obviously. It's the main thing, because the government's refusing to do something about it, and doing something for them to do it is essentially a good thing. You know, putting somehow these gangs in prison, or ICE even, in like your own prison, in an ethical way. Obviously I wouldn't condone any violent prisons or anything. Never. My throat's getting dry, it's weird. Never had that. Yeah, that seems to be the only way to do something at this point, to prevent disaster, to prevent harm coming to people. But yeah, I'm sick of this climate where you're not even sure what's going to happen. You know, as a disabled person myself, I don't even feel certain about my future in the UK. The way things are going, there's going to be more inequality, not just in money, but even society in general. Like, there's just going to be no room, and we're just going to be lost because of that. So I don't know what happens at this point, but all I can say is we need to fight back and also just make a revolution. Like, we need it at this point. It's not a question of if or when. It happens now. That's really all that can happen for the good of the world at the moment. So good luck to everyone. The fun fact, I've got thinking about playing TF2 again. It's not really for the reasons you think. Again, I want to avoid anything to do with the loot boxes or updates, and even the just the microtransactions in general. And let's be honest, they're all a scam, as they always have been. That's one of those things I wish would stop, but in realising that I need to make a compromise in that, I think one of the only ways I can find entertainment when I eventually run out of things to do, or just want a game to focus on, that probably isn't Deep Rock Galactic. Even though I love Deep Rock Galactic, it's still fine. I just want another game to be able to play in the case of, again, Final Fantasy 14 going down or something, or just needing to cheer myself up. There's a lot of things I could be doing in Team Fortress 2, believe it or not. Playing friendly mode and stuff is always fun. Just joining like casual matches in general can be entertaining in itself. After I left, apparently they solved the bot crisis, which is great. I wish it was done sooner. It just makes no sense that it wasn't addressed sooner rather than later. But the other thing is people have forgotten what hashtag save TF2 actually meant. Like immediately, which was fucking disappointing, and I feel so much shame in the community. It's easily one of the biggest, it's one of the biggest controversies without even being public. Because players were protesting not just the bot situation, but most were, and didn't really state it. They're protesting the bot situation and the terrible updates we've received, where the Valve are prioritising, obviously, a bunch of microtransactions and loot boxes, and they've even gone as far as to just make stop in the end, like leaving the community to make it, and not even properly playtesting it. There's so many exploits on these things. It's just frankly insane. And that's one of the biggest turn-offs for the game at the moment, is literally the terrible updates, the terrible consistency of them, and just the terrible cosmetics and stuff. Like, nobody wants the cosmetics, they just want a fucking update. They want new weapons, they want new maps, and they want very limited, well, not limited in the sense of FOMO, but very few cosmetics added. Like, just have an update as it was back in the day, where it's just an item you can craft or something, or just unbox from a new crate that's just like simple. It's not graded, it's not anything. You need to bring back that. Given that Team Fortress 2 is, how far is it? TF2 released, it doesn't come with Titanfall 2007. It was released October 10th. It's just coming on its 18th anniversary soon. But I think for a 20th anniversary, it really needs to do something. It needs to add a new official game mode. I think they should have prop hunt, in my opinion, or new bosses to the Saxon Hell one. There's just so many areas it can improve on, and yet still be relevant, still be fun. But it's not doing that because it's shit, really. And yeah, as much as I can love the multiplayer nature of it and the casual nature, it's still kind of shitty to just engage in because it's scummy. The economy's scummy, Valve is scummy at this point. Let's just address that. And yeah, the community isn't much better either. The fact they've forgotten this is yet more proof, and Valve are going to do desperate lengths as well, which also makes me hesitant to try it again. They've basically started offering macro transactions in CSGO, CS2, whatever you call it. How much are they actually? CS2 macro transactions. I remember seeing it's like £20,000 macro transaction cultures to 2023. What the fuck? Where is it? Valve events new Counter-Strike. This is a dodge. Gambling regulations. What? Okay, there's a bunch of articles on this. CS2 updates for the predatory microtransactions. Let's see. Let's go through this video. So it hasn't shown anything yet. Oh, here it is. Okay. So $370 AK-47 skin. Right. It's absurd. Just a bad idea. I'm not a fan of it, obviously. Why are people claiming they invented something? You're fucking kidding me. Alright, let's see what it says. So the terminal loot, okay, so that's what it was, okay. But it's just so dumb. Like, it proves that you're just scummy. You know, showing the prices up front for a rare item, where it's going to cost a lot more, supposedly, it doesn't make it any better. People are not going to pay that money for it. They'd rather pay someone who's just luckily got it and get it that way. Sort of removes the gambling risk, but still, it's still bad. Yeah, I just hate it, and that's making me not want to try it. Not to mention this can happen to TF2. You know, I sort of predict it, but I think they'll start offering certain unusual hats, items, weapon skins for the same price. It's literally an experiment. You know, CS2 is one of the more popular Valve games, I guess. I'm not sure how popular exactly. But it seems like this is like testing the waters here. And it's literally going to spread. They're probably going to add it to Dota 2, they're probably going to add it to TF2. Sorry, I forgot the name. But no doubt future games in the live services are probably Deadlock 2 as well. Deadlock as well. Trying to not mix words. Very hard. It's terrible. Yeah, I think from that alone I just don't want to touch it. Because of the fear that something will happen like that and it will ruin the game. And this is why people start hacking into games, it's so they can bypass this bullshit. You know, if you see a CS2 player something with like fucking blinding ass skins, don't be surprised. You know, they're protesting the garbage that is the microtransactions there, which again, whilst it bypasses the loot box problem, it creates another one, and they're selling the solution. And it's such an inefficient thing that it really just doesn't help people at all. And you know, placing your own price on this, by the way, which is a scummy thing, placing your own fucking price on this item is just ridiculous. Because that means you're partial to it. Which, again, it wouldn't be a problem if it was cheap, but you're just artificially inflating it. Meanwhile, there are games on the platform that offer you far more content, far more hours, for much less than these absurd prices like $300 or even like $2,000 seeing this go up to. So it's just absolutely fucking absurd. It makes no sense, and I don't know why Valve have done this. Over the years have just tarnished their reputation in many different ways, further proving that it's sort of becoming corrupt and really it's further leaning towards like supporting another library in a sense. You know, like good old games. So one of these dragons, sure. It's just so disappointing. So yeah, I'm probably not going to touch it now. It became less about I want to play TF2 again, straight into oh god, it's dystopian. I don't want to try it. I'd much rather play other games. So yeah, fuck that. Let's move on to the next topic. So this is interesting, also there's an annoying bit to this. I found the first major flaw with the Green Party. Does it mean I'm not going to vote them? But this flaw in itself could definitely send the country into disarray and complete fucking disaster. And I'll explain why. It's about leaving NATO, but first, let's talk about the idiots on the comments on TikTok. There are people calling this party communism, which I guarantee you they do not know what it means, and I want to double check what it means anyway, so I'll do that now. So yeah, I was right. Looking at some of the image examples here there is, and also there's one here called Democratic Socialism. For some reason image won't load, but I'm guessing it's like the same. It's not the same idea actually, I'm wrong about that, but it's the same as like being progressive, essentially. That's what I've known about socialism anyway. And people are pointing out that the Green Party is the Communist Party, which is false. And a lot of the information about communist parties, it gets completely muddled up, and it's basically about privately owned versus communal owned, which is not something that I think the Green Party is actually pushing for. I haven't heard them openly talk about this, they've just been talking about taxing the wealth. So whatever fucking idiots are out there thinking, oh, they're just going to make things not privately owned, it's false. Are you kidding me? They haven't even mentioned anything like that. So that's a weird sort of claim, and people are saying he's unvotable for that reason, which is just weird. I've no idea why. It's more stupidity upon stupidity. So far I've seen only primarily good things from the Green Party, which is saying a lot because over the years, again growing up and stuff, I've not really seen much hope in any other political party. Most have been disappointing, and even those that have supposedly promised us everything haven't. So it doesn't really matter. Essentially, the Green Party has the best shot at making the country better, but even then, like, I think one of the things that another flaw actually with it, and with parties in general, it needs to be a group effort rather than a specifically leader-based system. So we need like people to agree with certain things and be on board with it to decide these things. And yeah, people may not entirely agree with it, but at the end of the day, it's like it's probably the safest system. I could be wrong. I do think there are cases where you should be able to like override that, because there are people who literally don't have a fucking clue. And if you look at the anti-immigration stuff, I wouldn't trust the public with voting on something like that. So there are issues like that which need to be addressed for sure. But the main issue that I wanted to talk about was leaving NATO. Something that Zach Polanski brought up in a Sky News interview. I skipped ahead to that bit, honestly, and just highlighting that. And honestly, it's fucking stupid. Like, it's easily the dumbest thing I've heard. From, at least from a perspective of someone who's like definitely more informed on these topics, generally. Just gonna get a bit distracted here. My god, it's so bad of an idea, because basically the reason for wanting to leave NATO is because of the nuclear weapons. Basically he wants no nuclear weapons and wants peace. Both are definitely admirable goals, but you can't have that in today's world. Especially if you look at other countries, which no doubt will keep developing them despite there being no actual fucking thing. It's embarrassing. Like these other countries provide a threat, and if you just simply ignore them, like Russia, China, North Korea for example, no doubt have super weapons or something, then you just let them walk all over you. It's terrible. To just let them fucking walk all over you with their super weapons when we don't have any, it's just extremely dangerous and foolish. It's literally suicide. And you can't trust people like this either. And until they get new leadership, which basically says, nah, we're not going to develop weapons anymore, and you can't really trust anyone. It's just absolute insanity. So the other thing with nuclear weapons is countries know that if they start to initiate nuclear war, which is a very real possibility at this point, let's not ignore that fact, then it could very well become a problem and we need to respond in kind. So basically, eye for an eye. And it will get out of hand if that does happen, strictly so. But there's a reason why we stockpile nuclear weapons. Yes, they're fucking horrific. Nobody wants to go through that. But nobody wants to be walked over either. And that's where we have problems. There's no peace in a world where another side doesn't agree with it. That's where you always have the problems. We can have our own internal peace, for sure. That's what the Green Party essentially represents. It's doing the most non-violent thing. But leaving NATO, or technically changing it, even doing the alternative, it's just going to make you an easy target. And yeah, like, the thing with nuclear war that people have to understand as well, it can make places uninhabitable for a while. And that means that there's no such thing as a country takeover, so really nuclear war is about destruction. That's why currently you don't see Russia doing it to Ukraine, because Russia won't land. That's what was initially said anyway, like back when the war first started. So it's just absolutely fucking nuts. So yeah, I don't really know what else to say here. It's absolutely ridiculous to claim to want peace and then actively make ourselves vulnerable. Yeah, it's just shooting yourself in the foot. It's like the bicycle meme. I put a stick through. Like at the top, like, yeah, I want peace. Remove self from NATO. Ah, fuck. NATO did this. Like, it's so bad. Like, come on. Yeah, nobody's perfect though, that's the thing here to understand. I have no idea if Zach would actually hear this, but it'd be interesting if he did. It'd be surprising. I'm just a lonely autistic guy. But yeah, that's the problem here. And also, that's the other problem, the other stupidity with this. It's not to do with Green Party this time. It's to do with other people. They don't source their shit. All they said in these comments, and there was no proof of this in the interview with ITV recently, or speech technically, people were saying he wanted to leave NATO, and they didn't say where that was from. So I was just like sitting there like thinking, where is it? I looked it up, and all that comes up was interviews. So it's just lucky that I came across the one that had it, that had him talking about this. And also the Sky news person who was interviewing him did actually speak out about this too. She said that this is what NATO is about. It's like a nuclear alliance treaty or something. Is that actually what it stands for? What does NATO? I've actually looked it up. I'm pretty sure I did before, but North Atlantic Treaty, okay, no, not nuclear. I think NATO existed obviously to repel larger forces, and that's stuff like Russia, China no doubt at some point, and probably North Korea as well. But all these other threatening entities, and that's why they exist. So NATO has a reason to be here, even in a peaceful world. You have to understand that you also have to defend other countries that are not even doing much wrong. And that's why currently Poland's in a panic over the Russian drone stuff. And not necessarily a panic, but they're actually quite competent. Actually both. They actually understand the risks here and also what they're doing. So there's really no concern. But we have an obligation, being in NATO, to provide resources, not just to Poland, but every other country that's next to Russia that is at risk. It's to obviously show solidarity, but also to show that we're stronger together. Again, that's why it exists. Like, NATO was something that was built specifically to combat something like Russia. So that's what's happening. But the other thing as well, which I find bizarre, other than people not referencing the sources, just saying it without any context, it's also I don't know why that left my head. Oh, damn it, I can't remember. Damn, there's another point that I had that was really interesting. I guess it also means that if you leave NATO, you can't be defended yourself, exactly. It means that you'll be in trouble, and that's not a good thing. That's all that's not good. But there was another thing that I was going to say, but I can't remember what it was. It's also pretty important, a stupid thing, I'm trying to backtrack. Fuck, I wish I knew what it was. I have to backtrack more and I'll pause this. Yeah, this is the other thing. It's actually really important as well. Basically, separating yourself from NATO, even as an alternative, not only puts you at risk, but also means that you're giving into their hands, the enemy's hands. And that's not a good thing, at all. Because one, the intent with sending drones into Polish airspace, so Russians did that, is to supposedly sow chaos into people, into NATO, and the UN, I guess. But it's basically there to try to separate people and test the sort of skills and whatnot regarding war and stuff and weapons, like you name it. And yeah, this was a test, and that's the thing. They're trying to create a divide to separate us and supposedly become more vulnerable. That's what's happening there. So if you do end up changing what NATO is, then something like this could happen, where you all get separated and you're all targets of a war. Or if you're not targets, you're at least vulnerable to it and even open to like discussions with, again, an enemy. Because let's not forget, if you're the leader 1 year, or 5 years even, someone else could be, and they'll be like the person who actually starts to fucking communicate with an enemy, like people that nobody agrees with. Like, let's say, obviously it's happened with Trump, so it's a bad example, but I don't know. Let's say Xi Jinping, I guess, as an example. If the UK leaves NATO and starts pairing with Xi Jinping, then we've got a big problem on our hands, because whatever influences they have there, we'll start to copy to again become like them, which also could put us in a vulnerable position because of just being incompetent and inadequate, which China is objectively so. And they employ a lot of propaganda and scare tactics outside of their country for some reason, which is always odd. But again, that puts us in a bad position because we're also at risk of becoming enemies, like, to anyone. But the divide is literally what they want to happen. So long as you say shit like this, like get rid of nuclear weapons and establish peace, you're just going to be a blanket, you're just going to be walked over. And even then, someone might try to ally with you and make it convincing enough that you have to. And, you know, it's kind of like, okay, well, maybe let's say China wants to ally with us. That's a similar example. But they'll only do that under certain conditions, you know, like for the surveillance state or something. But they also might only want to do that, again, under the condition that they'll bomb us if we don't agree. Like, it's literally that sort of relationship. And in an alliance like NATO, you're not allowed to do that, because everyone will be aware of it, and you're not really allowed to communicate with enemies necessarily, except outside of like conferences and stuff. But still, that's a very real risk. The consequences and stakes are way too high to fucking leave that shit. So, yeah. Let's move on. So, I was right. The AI apocalypse is happening. It's basically, it's like a zombie takeover, I guess, but it's now AI. The internet is starting to become too dangerous to trust anything. Because on top of, obviously, Trump using AI now, which is fucking stupid, it seems like everything else that we see on the internet is almost not to be trusted. So we're going to encounter very big problems with fake crimes, fake events. Hell, there's probably even going to be exaggerations of something like a terrorist attack. Like, it's going to be so fucked up. And essentially we don't have many options, and actually it's just reminding me I want to get an old phone. I want to go to like the most basic phone at this point, just as like a backup. Let's see, like, I'll have to do some research, but again, like, it's scary. And this current world that we're living in is just increasingly becoming scarier. I'm actually going to look at old Nokia phones. But I'm like constantly just in shock about everything that we just witnessed here. Because it seems to be getting worse and worse each fucking time. And the fact we're able to generate AI body cam footage is in itself a danger, and it can only get worse. Yeah, I've always said I didn't want this shit to happen, but it is happening. I've said AI needs to be regulated before it gets out of hand, and nobody listens. So you only have yourselves to blame, and then the people played with it, assuming that nothing will happen, and something did happen. So you have yourself to blame. And I can only say I've used AI probably twice, and it was just an experiment both times. And it didn't even dish out the image I wanted. So it just goes to show, it's just shitty to use it. And even the people just using it casually, for personal use, and even at home, are still a threat. And let's just call it for what it is. It's literally terrorism now. Because it can't be anything else but that, because of the nature of it. It's there to generate something that doesn't exist, but it's generating things at such a realistic level now that we can't really trust it. Like, just the other day, I got sent a animal video, and whilst some of the animal videos are obvious to see, this one you could have easily missed, but it was obvious when you actually know where to look. I got recommended this video of I think it was a Labrador dog, but in a doggy daycare essentially, and someone supposedly recording them, and it's just making a face, like eyes wide open and stuff, just being like, didn't want to be there. And I noticed in the background that a dog blended into the other, which immediately made me realise, oh shit, like, I've been half tricked here. Because that is obviously AI there, but this is too. Which is kind of hard to believe, but still, like, it's absolutely nuts. You know, it's a scary thing. So it just makes the internet hard to trust, and yeah, like, you don't know what to do now, because it's scary. As I said, it's just going to become more and more dangerous. Like, who knows what's next? You know, somebody's probably going to go out there and generate a bunch of AI shit regarding like various like public people, who knows, like political leaders or something, or maybe even just like people they disagree with. Like, it's just so malicious, and this is why I specifically didn't enable my what the fuck's going on here in the background of Final Fantasy 14. It's like a ladder felt blended into a line. So yeah. Yeah, like people are going to use it for malicious reasons, obviously. But this comes with so many different problems, and it makes you unsure who to trust. And then you got companies fucking sucking the dicks of all of these fucking people, all of these companies, saying that you need AI, you need it to live, you need it to get through technology now. And then suddenly we're seeing this. So yeah, like, so many fucking people to blame here. It's absolutely absurd. So I've said this before, I said it 2 years ago. I wouldn't be surprised if this just gets out of hand. Like, to the point where people just stop using the internet. It's going to happen. I just know it is. And one day the internet's just going to be full of this fucking AI crap. And you can't actually miss it. And you know, it's going to be not just the generated content, but it's going to be stuff like Google AI over here, which nobody wanted, and it keeps harassing me. Like, guarantee if you go into Google, it's going to ask me about it, maybe? Okay, it asked me every now and then, it didn't ask me then. But it gets so out of hand. It's just poisoning the world. And at this point, the only things you can trust is just in-person interaction. And that's why I want to get an old phone. I can't remember what SDs I have. SD SIM card. Yeah, so I'm just going to do research on that. It's very boring. So I don't know what else to say other than prepare for the worst, because it's going to be necessary at this point. Yeah, there's not much we can do. It's just... So yeah, move on to the next topic. So in the same vein as addressing AI problem, I think we need to also talk about possible solutions as well, because as much as I'm definitely not wanting AI to exist to begin with, just out of principle, I want to explain also like where it is on a human rights perspective. Because yeah, before I do solutions, we need to talk about human rights, and one of the things that you have to look out for is basically how it can alter reality. And what I mean by that is the things we've just seen. It's making animal videos, but it's also somehow making SpongeBob in a police chase or something, being pulled over. And as funny as it is, we need to not support that. So the human rights violation comes in when you start promoting it and essentially click on it, like allowing it to happen. Like, I've been through like several TikToks unfortunately where it's like AI generated. Yeah, whilst they're funny, I'm not going to support them, I'm not going to like, I'm not going to favourite them, I'm not even going to comment. And that's it. I'm not even going to give it my full view. So that's generally how you avoid it, for the most part anyway. The other thing is not giving money or data to AI sources. Well, just anyone really. Whoever's doing AI, you just do not give them anything. Don't make an account. Don't even use the fucking thing to begin with, which is the best advice here. But if somehow you're not able to, then you need to find ways to make sure you're anonymous. So maybe use a fake email or fake phone number if that's possible. And you avoid all the garbage that comes with it. For the most part anyway. I don't think you avoid it all, but you can certainly avoid most of it. And then, sort of went off track again. But yeah, where it violates human rights is just on the premise that it can generate almost close to real life stuff, and this means that anyone is at risk. You know, it could be, say, autistic people, it could even be your grandmother. Like, that's not impossible. And that's where the real danger is. Because people are definitely going to be at risk because of the misuse of these products. And because we necessarily can't monitor everything people do with it, it's not always going to be possible to like determine like who's using it or not. Fuck, I got distracted doing this shit. Yeah. Basically said that the lack of regulation caused this, and the lack of societal protest caused it as well. And it's even with things like ChatGPT, which I'd argue still is a problem, because it's basically replacing thoughts and opinions, another human rights violation, because we need humans to decide these things ourselves, to realise that in this world, in this planet, you literally cannot enable this shit. Because it means that everything that could be done by a human is now replaced by AI, but not just that, it means it can say whatever it wants. And AI doesn't necessarily have a filter, but even if it does, it's going to actually fuck us over, because it means they can say whatever they want. That's why people like fucking Elon Musk have said like the AI that is on X is basically saying the wrong thing when it's saying the right thing. It's not in reality. And he basically wants to change, I should say it, because I don't think Elon's even human. But he wants to change the AI to essentially do horrific things and say horrific things. So that's the big danger here. So it can say that you can ask the AI, for example, how do you feel about race? And it'll say race is something that only exists in one country, and it's just like something stupid like that, and only like white Americans could exist. Like, it's so fucking dumb. I do not like it. It is just bad. But that's what can happen. And this is the big danger of this shit. It can say anything it wants and people will believe it, because they're either dumb enough to not know it, and no doubt old people will, but it's also, again, gullible people will just believe whatever they want to believe as well. Like, if you ask if the earth is flat, which now I no doubt will answer with, yes, it is flat. And it's just so wrong in many ways. This can't be allowed to happen. It's just terrible. And yeah, I'm fed up with that shit. It's horrible. What the fuck is with YouTube recommending me stuff I said I'm not interested in? Just tell us why I didn't like the video that I got. Yeah. But there's so much that can go wrong, as I keep saying. I suppose the other human rights stuff is you just don't know who to trust, because with AI essentially copying everything and taking over in a way where it replaces everything, like music and probably even like social interactions, it's going to be used maliciously as well. And that will turn people on each other. You know, there's apparently, I think there's already been like some sort of fucking scam around where apparently they call you about some relative supposedly calls you, and they say that, I I'm missing money or something, and I need this much money wired to X thing. It's really fucking suspicious, and this is what I mean by not being able to trust anything really. And you know, when currently, like, I think you can spoof phone call numbers, so there's even a danger of that. So it sort of brings into question, like, okay, we probably need a new method on the. We have like a safe word, like that's one of the suggestions I've seen. So there's always that danger of people of AI just impersonating. Trying to think, what's the other thing? I don't know. That's really weird. I just think that the world is like, it's going through like many crises, and I think it's going to continue to do so. As long as these things just don't get looked at. And yeah, the other violation, I guess, is again probably seen with like Trump and stuff, where he apparently responded to an AI video, I think, of, was it Chicago being attacked or something, and it turned out not to be real because it's AI generated. So as I said, massive fucking danger, big problem. And it's convincing idiots like this is why it shouldn't have been allowed to exist. I suppose I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I can't think of anything else actually, which is interesting. Also, there's like an art, ironically. So regarding like generative AI, the whole reason art exists is a way to express yourself. But instead, if we're looking at art as an object rather than essentially a meaning, or even something that's just, I don't know how to describe it, but just personally interesting, then art's never going to be any special. And that means not only are people going to be out of jobs, it means that people are no longer going to be satisfied. And especially when an actual hand-drawn artist comes around and they do, like, I don't know, Simpsons style sketches and stuff, and they're presenting it like, oh yeah, I made this artwork myself. And it's like, the majority of AI cocksuckers, because I don't have a better term, they'll start saying, it's fucking horrible, or why did you draw this? AI can do something better. And we're going to face a scenario within the next few years, I reckon, that is so dystopian. And also people who've just started or even struggle with it because of disability are at a huge disadvantage, which again leans credence, is that the word, credence, I don't know, but it just leans so much in the way of like, okay, this is all so fucked up and this is all bad. So yeah, AI is just not good. It's a human rights violation for also animal rights as well, because let's not forget, if they're going to replace jobs, one of the places no doubt where they want jobs replaced is an industry that's not profitable, which is basically animal agriculture at this point. It's one of them. And that means that it'll replace probably farmers, which again, like, is terrible either way, if it's a farmer or AI, because animal farming is just not justifiable in any moral framework. And it will replace all task workers as well, which, by the way, there's a reason that people do it. It's because they know what to do if they fucked up. Like, it's horrific as it sounds, AI's probably going to do far worse, and it's probably going to allow animals to suffer right until the point of excruciating pain leading to death. Although that currently does happen with some animals, it could very well happen to just anyone at this point. Like, you know, it's like failing to slit a chicken's throat, and then they go through the boiler. The boiler, is it? Right, it burns off all the feathers, and yeah, you've got a massive problem there. So the chicken's gonna burn to death, and that's not very pleasant. at all. So AI is just not good for that either. Just there's so many issues with this shit. Like, it's unbelievable. So I guess like it leads to the solutions, and how do we address this exactly? I think the first thing you have to acknowledge is first politics, because it ties into this. As we've seen with India, like Trump and even Keir Starmer, I think, even to an extent, they do not understand technology at all. In fact, they just rather get into bed with the CEOs and that's it. That's all that happens. And because of that, we're in a situation where countries feel corrupt and so do the leaders, and they're going to waste our lives basically by forcing shit we don't want on us and just ruining everything else. So we run into massive issues there. But one of the most obvious things is that they do not understand technology one bit. This is why, essentially, I don't know how to describe it exactly, but the older someone is, as it tends to be, it's not an ageist thing, it's actually a fact, the less likely they're going to understand this. They're not going to understand technology as much. And that's why you put a younger person in charge. This is why people are saying like Zach Balansky in the UK is probably one of the only hopes that the UK has of becoming good again, becoming a welcome place. That's because he understands things, and he no doubt understands technology as well. Because he knows about climate science and stuff, I think anyway, at least the Green Party does. But even then, he's got advisors, he's got other people around him that do. And that's really important. So without that, we don't have a future. But currently people are voting for another fucking old fart, let's just be honest, that's what it is. And saying that he's going to fix the country, but he's not, because he's actually against everything that we stand for. And that's going to destroy us. He's going to employ AI, he's no doubt going to be in bed with other AI technologies, CEOs and stuff. It's just going to be a horrific fucking mess, and voting anyone like this is a massive red flag. You always want to vote, obviously younger and more intelligent, but so more intelligent, better. Someone who's progressive for that matter. That way, AI can be regulated and technology can be less fucked. I don't know what Zach's stance is on digital ID with regards to the Green Party, but I have a feeling that it's going to be like, yeah, this is bad, but also from an environmental perspective, it's also bad, because they need the data centres for all the info and the images, which no doubt will take a lot. Like, it's probably going to take an entire fucking council house worth of servers or something. But that's literally like the reality here. You know, vote for someone who could know, who's intelligent and smart enough to understand that. Vote for someone who isn't. And obviously there's only one side here. But I'm not sure about the other thing. I think in terms of societal shift, I've always said actually since AI began, there needs to be regulations put in place, but we need to protest. And what did people do? They didn't protest. They did nothing. So that's why we're in this situation. You know, nobody stood up, nobody made a group or a rally. It's not something I could do because of my mental health issues, especially at the time, like being depressed. I'd actually fucking kill myself in a march, I think. That's, I just fed up with life. But I don't know, like, I'm not an organiser sort of person, I don't know anything about it. But that's something that needs to happen. And also just coincide, yeah, that's it. Coincide with another cause, like tax or wealth. There's probably no doubt others that are missing, but also like, what's that one about bombing Britain? Insulate Britain, that's it. something like that. Like, these all go hand in hand. And it's about informing governments about it through protests, and because nobody actually did anything about AI, it's gone out of hand. So, yeah. But the other thing, as I remember now, is if we get more younger people involved in technology and even designing laws around technology, we can probably address it sooner than later. But say in the eventuality, which no doubt it will be anyway, that nobody actually addresses AI, the next thing we need to do is actually get someone who knows it and understands it, or people in the actual sector itself, and begin either making another AI model, or begin making like a software that can identify AI. And I think this will be very useful, because I don't think AI will necessarily be perfect. What the fuck did I just wait this there? Final Fantasy 14 here. I just saw someone like pat another person who was doing /play dead as an emote. And then they disappeared. I think that was duty finder maybe. Anyway, back to the topic, ADHD moment. You need someone to make a software that can identify it. And this is useful for a few reasons, because it means that genuine artwork can actually get out there. Like, you can even like do drawings and stuff. But it means that it can be verified. So it can't be faked, it can't be AI generated. But having something that could scan that sort of stuff, even video, or even just text, can be very useful, because basically you can learn from the AI models that are commonly used and say that, oh, we've discovered this, it's commonly used on this AI. And that will determine the legitimacy of it. So if someone does come in with something saying, I've got a video of, I don't know, Nigel Farage saying the N-word, just as an example. So let's be honest, we're going to be doing a lot of Nigel dunking when he's a fucking guy on the news and stuff. Let's say he was caught with that. Yeah, like, you need to find out whether that's legitimate or not, because regardless of if you agree with him or not, the point is using something malicious like that to essentially frame him in a certain way is not good. It's just this, like, it takes away legitimacy. It invalidates certain points of stuff, and it's just a human rights violation. Yeah, it's kind of like, in a way, schoolyard, just fighting on site. Well, imagine that in school, like, going alongside Nigel Farage. You're like, Nigel just called me the N-word. It's just fucking show him an AI video. It's just, it's just not fit the school idea. That's actually what it is. It's going to turn into that situation. We need a way to validate these things, to see that it's actually fake. Because yeah, like, nobody deserves that shit. With how corrupt like Trump is, and actually, now I think about it, actually, Nigel will probably do it to us, but either way, it's still wrong. Yeah, it's a weird situation, and I think we need to figure out how to identify it before we get fucked over by it. It's really important to do that, as I'm just like increasingly frustrated by the fact that nothing is done about it. And something needs to be done. It's just frankly absurd. I don't know why this is such a huge problem. Yeah, I just hope things work out in the end, just in general, so we don't have to face this shit. Let's be honest, I do not want to face a world where I can essentially be AI generated or something. And I just don't want to be involved in that shit. Also, that's another human rights violation. It's like a form of attack, like terrorism, even. Because that's what it'll do. if used maliciously. And yeah, it's just super dangerous to even have, and again, they're in people's hands. You know, don't even look at the AI murder machines that they're apparently planning to make. It's not fucking good at all, because it means they could target anyone. It could even mean they target kids, which currently like drones do anyway. So imagine now with AI that targets kids. Yeah, good luck getting out that one. And remember, if you ever support AI, you've got a lot of explaining to do for your crimes. So there's nothing to explain. Again, it's related to politics. For some reason, people don't seem to be sure why they get called far right if they're essentially advocating for a certain cause, and I think the same can be true for the opposite side when people are called lefties, but it's really the same thing. It's like association, and typically what we see is people on the right who are anti-immigration are very much against equality, and that's why they are labelled far right. There you go, you don't need to know any more than that, but going to specifics, what I'll try to anyway. People on the right typically hold these views, and they come along with other views, like taking away workers' rights, taking away even like human rights, like even women being able to vote. And these are the sorts of oppression, because that's the important word here, that will often break a society. But sometimes it will unite it in rare cases, in a way where everyone just suddenly turns to that because of propaganda or just whatever. Like, it really depends on the situation. That's why you can find some countries being extremely hostile towards the West, and that's because of propaganda. But ironically, that's its own hostile takeover. So it's a problem in itself. So the reason why people who are probably not only just anti-immigrant but racist or pro-Israel in some cases, in a lot of cases I should technically speaking, that's why they end up being labelled as far right. And if you don't like the term, you need to start learning, because that's what it actually stands for. You know, if you stand on the side of oppression, but also you're kind of like a tax the wealth, tax people, middle class maybe, you're probably a centrist, because that's what it is basically. It's like a mix of different views. There's no easy way to scale it, because political leaning in itself is subjective, and there's like 4 different ways you could go in directions, like up, down, left, right, sort of thing. But you could also go into the corners, obviously. That's what the scale is about. It's like placing your ideas on a path, like think like calculating it like a number, and it's sort of inaccurate. That's why I don't like it myself. But it does kind of accurately portray a majority of beliefs that certain people have, and shows inconsistencies. But that's typically why I don't want to actually engage in political leanings. Again, it's just pointless fucking banter. There is nothing to it, and that's why I don't want to really get into that. But I have to explain this because people just don't seem to understand. So the important thing to note is when you're labelled something like that, it's for a reason. And the difference between the people who call others far right versus people who are like far left or radical left, as some say, the difference is that people understand what those mean. But the people accusing, like the far right, accusing people of being radical left or extremists, don't even fucking know what that means. I can guarantee it. I don't really know where the term radical comes from. What does it actually mean? Radical meaning, pretty sure I looked this up before. relating to or affecting the fundamental nature of something far-reaching or thorough. So, nothing amazing. Second one, advocate are based on complete political or social change, representing or supporting extreme aggressive section or political party. Yep, that's kind of the definition of it anyway. But the problem is, saying these labels doesn't mean it's inherently wrong, and this is true for both sides. And the reason why people pair anti-immigration with the far right is because it is an idea that the far right will leech onto, and if you make it so important that you again go to these like protests, United Kingdom, whatever, or just go to asylum hotels like a fucking cunt, because nobody's doing that. It's just a douchebag thing to do. Then you're just part of the problem. You're going to cause more problems for the other ideas that you have, basically. So if you're a worker and you're voting reform, you're going to fuck yourself, because they're not pairing with workers' rights. They don't align with that. They're essentially far right, because that's what they stand for. And this is also the same party that pretty much wanted to get us out of Brexit in Britain anyway, and then fucked our economy because of it. So it's a big issue, and frankly, when you look at these ideas and stuff, you have to look at how it benefits people, not how it personally impacts you, but how it benefits people overall. And yeah, like a lot of the time, the right leading ideas are the most harmful, not just to the countries, but the fucking world. Look at what's happened in America with Trump. Republicans are typically far right, but they don't seem to have the intelligence to actually address any problems in a professional way. And so you have situations that we have now, where you've got a complete fucking man-child in presidency, not just a man-child, but a convicted rapist and other things. And yeah, the country's in deep shit because of this. It doesn't matter how prominent he was with saying, oh yeah, we'll fix the economy. He didn't do that. He made it worse. And this is why you don't align with these ideas. Because if they say something right, even, they're not going to always be right. And if they appeal its interests, they're saying like, oh yeah, we tax the wealth. But then they're going to say, okay, workers can't unionise or something. They're not going to actually give a shit about you. They're going to fuck you over, because those don't make sense. You can't fix the economy and also say that workers don't have rights. So it's a big problem, and that's why this has happened, essentially. So yeah, that's political leanings, really. That's why people are labelled far right, as opposed to just anti-immigration. The obvious reason, I suppose. You should just put a fucking image of a woman on my screen for some reason. I don't know what that was. That was all. But it's so fucking dangerous. Just these ideas that the far right has, that they constantly exaggerate, and just everything they say is just up to criticism and has a terrible effect on humanity. And inequality leads to more inequality, as it usually does. The only reason you don't see it in other countries is because they've either got a good grasp on it, or people are just not allowed to speak out. So it's like, if someone mentioned gay, arrest them. Like, it's horrific. And when that happens, typically there's like no voices to actually speak out, and that's the problem. That's oppression. But you're forgetting something important here. These are human beings. They're not fucking animals. So they shouldn't be arrested for saying something that very much isn't illegal or even against someone's ideas. In fact, most people support nowadays gay marriage, even in these places that are very homophobic. And it means that these ideas, these political leanings, are really outdated and harmful. They have no place in modern day society, but also the world as a whole. So that's really why people who are anti-immigrant are labelled far right. And yeah, it's not surprising. Again, like the intelligence level, and this is really something that is actually factual. The intelligence level of people typically saying like, why are we labelled far right when we're just anti-immigrant? That's why I was just explained. Anti-immigration is a far right idea, and you can't really disassociate with that even if you identify as left leaning. And I try to think about it myself, being honest, like, do I have any far right ideas? Nothing really comes to mind. So I don't really lean right in that sense. So I'll always appear left because that's what, again, these facts I've looked into anyway, seem to point me towards. I favour evidence and scientific study above all else. And that's typically how I decide my beliefs. But people on the far right don't use either, so it says a lot about not just the scale of intelligence, but political leanings as well. So let's move on. So there's been some news about the activists from the Global Summud Flotilla. Some have been released, and we're yet to see the others. And one of them shared the story about what's happened to Greta, and also it seems to be taken with a grain of salt, unfortunately, but it does sort of match up with everything they're currently doing in Israel to inmates and basically anyone they've arrested for whatever reason. No reason, apparently. Just existing. So it's bad still. It's basically the same things. I'm yet to hear about anything even more malicious, but it's been just beating up Greta and making her kiss the Israeli flag, which I'm pretty sure not only breaches international law but also breaches a lot of laws in their own countries. So it's just fucking crazy to me. They're testing the waters with what they can get away with, and I'm guessing they're gonna have a hostage situation, because why else wouldn't they release someone like Greta or any of the other activists? And to me, it's just reeks of, oh yeah, we've got a hostage, so let's abuse that. So again, I've warned about this before. I specifically said, not even like a few weeks ago, I don't think, they will try to get away with whatever they can, and they'll test the waters in that. So they're testing the waters with obviously beating up Greta and making her kiss an Israeli flag, which is like, compared to the other things they do, is completely surface level. Like, there's worse shit that can happen, for sure. It's not to undermine what's happened to Greta, but it means that they are testing the waters. They've already attempted, well, technically assault murder before, when they were in international waters. So they already know that they can get away with it. And this is the problem. It means that they can get away with murdering any of the activists. So, because there's no response from a military action or government point of view, they can get away with whatever they want. So just keep that in mind. And I've said over the past few weeks as well, that everyone who's ignored this, every world leader, even the UN, who have completely ignored these issues, the genocide, the Israeli military just being complete war criminals, they're all complicit. There's no other way around it. You're just complicit if you are standing by and letting that happen. And that is what's happening. So, I want to add another thing to this. And I'm calling out world leaders as being villains. There's no greater word for this, but you're standing by whilst these atrocities happen and have happened in front of our eyes. So you're complicit in all of it. You're complicit in the genocide, you're complicit in the terrorism, and also the terrorism against the Global Summud Flotilla, as well as not being able to get humanitarian aid to Gaza. So it is the world leaders to blame here, who now should go to court because, frankly, it's unjustifiable. I think there needs to be a change of leadership in every single fucking country. There needs to be investigations into the corruption that's led to this happening, that's kept it happening. Because there's something really off here. And if it wasn't obvious back before this flotilla even happened, it's more obvious now. So that's my warning. The world is watching, not just flotilla, but the world leaders. And they've got a lot to pay for now. And by them, I mean the world leaders, not the flotilla. Thought I'd correct that, because I only realised after the fact. Yeah, it's absolutely horrific, and it's just terrible, really. Like the fact that innocent people are treated as terrorists shows you a lot about our own world leaders. Shows you about their inaction. You know, if you found out that somebody was not even breaking the law in international waters and suddenly kidnapped, which they were, like, I think 49 of the boats in the Global Summud Flotilla was like, well, at least a good 50% anyway. I don't know how many there actually were intercepted, but they've all been intercepted in international waters, not Israeli waters, international. So it is piracy, as people have been saying, and it is terrorism. So again, it shows you what the world leaders are actually saying. And you know, if this podcast suddenly disappears, you know why. It's because they've been caught, and I've discovered it. I've hit the nail on the head here. I'm pretty sure some other people are. But you know, this is why in the UK, currently protesters are being arrested for simply protesting about someone of Flotilla. So it's a completely busted system. And yeah, so it needs to change here. This can't be allowed to keep happening. It's fucking ridiculous. So, I don't know what else to say at this point. I think I've said everything I can. But something needs to change, and we need to hold the world leaders accountable. Because this is ridiculous. This shouldn't be happening. And they're just allowing it to happen. Progress update. So those who aren't aware, I make original music on a different channel. And I do this because I feel like there's topics I could be talking about on there, which obviously through music is a different way to do it. It's probably more interesting that way. The first few songs I made failed, and also have an actual few, I think, scraps from failed versions of my first ever songs, which sound odd. I've considered uploading them at some point. It's really, if I get the attention, it's not really worth it at the moment. Yeah, I've got a sort of progress update on where I am with that, if people are wondering. Because a few months ago I said I was going to change the way that I made the music. I actually uploaded a video to that channel, I think. And it was a realisation where I realised I had fucked up in just the way that I sort of made that music, and it just wasn't high enough quality. So I just ended up sort of changing how I did everything. I changed my style, I changed even the idea, like the idea of the band actually weird enough. Hence, like, the name Children in Existence is to take on everything at once. and what I've found to be my style isn't actually rather a style, but actually doing, what the fuck is that? Edit streamer. Dust bunny or something? I don't know what the fuck that was. I'll shove that shit away. No, but what I meant is I want to do multiple fusion genres with metal. Maybe others, I don't know yet. I might do like a math rock one at some point. But I want to do music that people aren't necessarily making, not in the way that I said before, but I was essentially just picking the things I like to hear and putting them together, but they aren't the things that necessarily work together. So, using an example, like, my only good song was Where Morality Dies, and that was a song based on, obviously, animal rights, if anyone's actually listened to it. And where that really worked well was I was inspired by Opeth and I think other bands as well. Can't remember what they were. The main inspiration was actually Opeth, of all things. And that's how I came up with that chord progression at the beginning. It's like, holy shit, it's such a big fucking chord progression, so weird. I still like it all these months later. And also the solo is just amazing. It's probably my best solo yet. It's such a weird song, and it just sort of worked anyway, but then you got something like Still Human or BAH, and they're just very odd, they're very off-putting. I think Still Human is probably the worst one because I tried to make it sound like Slayer, but it failed. And then BAH just didn't sound great either way. It had some interesting ideas, like going from a jazz chord to a metal sounding bit. It sort of worked. But I think the timing wise and stuff, it's probably off. Yeah, the difference in the style now is that I want to basically use other bands' styles as a template for the music I want to make, and this upcoming one, which I'll talk about briefly, is inspired by Sonic CD. I've been wondering, like, what genre? Metal. I'll define it as like dance metal, but it has the cliche sort of metalcore sort of thing going on. But I'm really interested in this because I really like the chord shapes I found for the dance part, and then I also have like a part that sounds a bit like, I guess, Parkway Drive in a sense, not completely. It does also sort of implement this, again, Sonic CD sound. It does sort of work. I've taken notes from other bands and I've realised like, I need to utilise certain notes more and repeat them, because that's like one of those things you go from something unfamiliar to something familiar, and that's pretty much how music works. So it's interesting, but I've made improvements there, and then when I got to the chorus, it's like, holy fucking shit. And not only does it sound like it's sort of periphery, but it sounds like it's from a dance song. The crazy thing about it was the chord progression for me, because it's like, wow. I just discovered this by accident, and it's like a mini key change in between these sections. It just works so fucking well. Every time I listen to it, it feels like sort of ascending, and it's like, oh, back down we go. It's fascinating, and I've managed to make a lead arrangement for that as well. I'd say the first part of the song is finished, so I've got technically a verse and then a pre-chorus, I guess you call it, and a chorus. Then I'm repeating the same thing, but I'm doing a variation. After that, it'll be breakdown and solo, and possibly a breakdown again, and back to the original. pretty much not original, but a variation, I guess. Yeah, and I did actually write lyrics for a song. I can't remember where I left that. I have to do a word search. Great, thanks, bud. Unreliable piece of shit. There you go, lyrics. Also got an image idea as well, which I'll try. Yeah, actually the meaning about this is actually kind of interesting because it is literally about dancing around problems, which is what the song is about, and what the style is. It's going to be interesting, so I do kind of look forward to it, but at the same time it's kind of like nerve-wracking. I've also had to change the tones to try and make it fit. I might go back to some original tones. I might have to experiment at this point because it doesn't really work for the song, which is weird. That's the other bizarre thing about this. I might actually just need to change the tones every time I make a new song. I don't really want to because I've spent money on this shit, but it just doesn't sound right to me. Like, it works in terms of style, but it doesn't work in terms of tone. It's not because of the lead, luckily, it's just because of the rhythms and all things. You know, listen back to some of the old rhythms and stuff I used to do, and it sounded a lot better to me. Which is odd because it's generally like quality, but I don't know. It's taken time as well to say this because I'm just taking my time with it. There's no other reason, and I do it not as part of my routine, but as a side project thing. I do it in the background whenever I'm done with every other routine and doing something else, like playing Final Fantasy 14. But it'll be there and I'll tab and I'll edit it, but I think I do need to assign some time to it to get it finished. I think because of the nature of the song, I might actually have to use what's her name? Solaria? Yeah, I think Solaria is her name actually. The synthesizer V vocal. That seems like the best option here, rather than Havoc, because Havoc's a bit off-putting sometimes. But Solaria is like so clean that people don't even notice she's not real. So it just kind of works, and I don't really mind using vocals. The only problem with that, and unfortunately, it's sort of ties to this popularity with just people liking male vocalists more. I don't exactly know why, but in metal for some reason it's more popular when there's a male vocalist, which fucking sucks. So, but I'll use Laura anyway. Yeah, I don't really know what else to say. And also, you can make Laura do growl vocals. It just needs to do a separate sympathy track and just do like proper growl stuff. But I'll have to experiment with that. I think first time I did it, it just didn't sound great because it's all muffled and stuff. It needs to be muffled for full effect. Otherwise, you just hear a bunch of weird ass sounds. Yeah, that's an update on the original music. It's coming along nicely, I think. I don't know when I'll get it done. That's kind of scaring me actually. I wanted to get it done by the end of the year. I might need to get a crack on with that and also figure out a way to stop fucking wasting my time in the morning. Jesus Christ. I just keep getting very far behind on things. Not sure if it's because I'm talking too much or what. I get distracted, so I just look at YouTube recommended and stuff. That's become a real problem, I think. So I need to address that. Let's move on to the next topic. So, you're probably going to hear me talking about this for a while, and it's going to be because, my god, it's a stressful situation at the moment. So, as I said before, I've taken the steps to prepare myself for Windows 10, but one of the things that I have to do, in a sense, is to make sure I have a backup option. Because you never know. It could just go horribly wrong. So I don't know how wrong it could go, and that's really why I'm preparing. And a while ago, because of my anxiety around, well, technology in general and stress that it can cause as well, I was pretty much forced to get a backup option and essentially have a laptop. It was also coming handy because I was travelling once, and yeah, it came in handy to just play games and stuff. But it wasn't the most optimal situation. So I have these backups just as a result of being anxious. So I wanted to prepare it today and then install Windows 11 tomorrow. My laptop already has Windows 11. And so one of the things I wanted to do was make sure my games are up to date and the operating system itself. Also I need to check for that because it doesn't automatically install for some stupid fucking reason. And I'm pretty sure I set that to. Yeah, there's a lot of things to take into account with this, and having a backup PC itself it's stressful. One of the sort of unintended things I didn't even notice would happen is that everything is so protective of its security. Like, everything expects you to be on one device only, and that essentially means you can't really be logged in 2 places at once on most devices. And so when I opened up the laptop again today, I was like reminded, oh shit, this crap again. But it seemed to be worse than ever because it was asking me for so many different things. It's asking me to go to an email to fucking get a code again from a different email. It's asking me to go on Steam Guard and stuff to log in via Steam. It's fucking ridiculous. And at the moment I'm trying to install Final Fantasy 14 on my laptop, and currently it's struggling to do that because I'm uploading a video, but it's also just unreliable as it always has been for some reason. The connection just cuts out randomly and then the install just stops, and some games don't actually install properly, like Genshin Impact and like Star Rail used to. You can probably see I'm lagging. The player's just rubber banding. Yeah, like, I'm trying to install it at the moment, and I left it for about 10 minutes, I'd say, maybe 5 actually. And because I'm doing it through the XRV launcher instead, it's struggling. But the stupid thing is it decides to stop installing like mid fucking patch, which by the way I would have thought an installer like this would have avoided, but no. Instead, when it finds an issue with the connection, it doesn't auto-connect. It fucking stops the entire thing. Luckily, it keeps the progress from what I can tell. It's like 160 somethings out of 160, and then it was 154. But my god, is that fucking stupid. Like, I can't believe that we're in 2025 making God knows what of technology, not even fucking see-through screens. And we can't even design a fucking piece of software to install something if the connection is suddenly disrupted. Like, to continue installing. It's just mind-boggling, like fucking baffling. It's just, why? It's just so idiotic. Whenever I look at shit like this and try to get into it, it's like, why? It makes no sense. I'm just tired of this shit, really. So I'm just in absolute like bafflement here, because it's like I'm trying to do the good thing here and trying to prepare myself for the worst and trying to look after my mental health, because that's what this is doing. Because people know that I have objections to it, like it's fucking greedy or something, but this is actually taking care of my mental health. You know, if I've got the stress of, oh, my PC's been bricked because of a Windows 11 install, I've got the backup and I can just focus on playing games in that case, and also I could continue routine if I could get work, and that's the other problem. You can't really snapshot Windows and software, so I've ended up having to install everything that I have on here and even compromise to make room, which I've got a bigger storage. to get everything on there so I can actually do hobbies. Clip Studio Paint, relatively simple, it's on the cloud and it's got different assets, they take up like megabytes each. But music takes up gigabytes and it's almost filled up the drive of just the essentials, so I don't really have many options in that sense. It's already stressful, and like I've made my own sort of backup instrument template thing, where it's using the VSTs from that device. So it's like different, but it's so stressful because it means that if I were to try and work on, say, my current cover on my laptop, I won't really have much of a choice. I'll have to go through everything to basically go to work to link it, and that will take probably an hour or so or more, which already takes up an entire routine section. But then if I get my PC back and do the cover back on there, I'll have to do that on here as well. So it's really fucking inconvenient. Frankly, I just wish software was more simple. I wish it was like, okay, you've got this folder in said software like FL Studio, you've got all your VSTs in there instead of outside, and it just works from the inside rather than outside, because you just really need that. You know, Windows is capable of that shit, I think, obviously, because it's running games, it has to access multiple files in one folder. But it really needs to just be possible to launch everything from a single fucking thing. You know, Steam already does this, like multiple games, multiple software. So it just makes no sense why they haven't done this already. And why is it just like, okay, we see this on your cloud sort of thing in FL Studio, we're going to install these VSTs. Okay, thanks. That's really handy. But they haven't done that. And so it's just massively inconvenient and stupid. But not to mention, it's just fucking tiring at this point, like, holy crap. Such bad design, just constantly. Man, I don't know what to say. It's just, oh my god. And there was another thing, I forgot what it was. I don't remember, but I was looking up things I should do before Windows 11. I didn't really find anything. Annoyingly, there was like no advice. It was just people arguing, nothing else. So thanks, internet. You really saved my ass. No. So yeah, I'm still pretty nervous about this, just going into Windows 11 in general, but also the install. I just don't know how to handle the problems that might occur if they do. It's just one of those things, really. And I think if you already have anxiety around tech and stuff, it's like, it's increased. Especially with every update, every fucking whatever, like whenever there's a Windows update, weird fact, I tend to wait a few days because I do not want to install it knowing that there could be an issue. You know, I want to find out if there's any issue with it, so I wouldn't actually want to install it knowing that it could break my PC, for example. Like, fuck that. That's not worth it. So it's not worth the risk. And that's why I leave it, usually. Same with like video driver updates, but even then it's like hard to tell sometimes. But it just gives them an opportunity to update it if there is a problem. The only problem is, I don't think Microsoft are very on the ball with that. So there is that issue, which is frustrating. Yeah, so yeah, that's why Windows 11 sort of preparation, what the hell? It's not even a word. Yeah, so I'll let people know how the install goes. I'm going to play Final Fantasy 14 all day today, fuck it. I'm not in the mood for routine. Had a bit of a rough morning, had a good sleep, which was weird. Strange how that works. But also just the fact that I've had to contend with fucking technology again. It's just stress enough as it is. So I need to, again, favour my mental health here, unfortunately. And try to focus away from this bullshit. Essentially, it's rough. Yeah, being as anxious as I am, it's like, yeah, it's terrible. And this wouldn't have happened if, again, Windows 11 wasn't fucking forced on everyone. So it's just absurd. Anyway, I'll move on to the next topic now. So, yeah. Might as well do the outro because I'm pretty much done here. Fucking hell. Don't know when I'm gonna upload it now. Yeah, been a weird week of topics really. Or a few days technically. Yeah, I might have to review some of these again because there's so much here. But thanks for listening. Yeah, see you on another time.